Minister Klich, Senator Klich, it's great to see you, and I'm very, very proud of the work we did together over a very intense and very productive couple of years. Thank you very, very much. And as well, Mr. Minister, thank you very much. You could do this panel all by yourself. And you served very, very honorably and closely with my country and all of the NATO allies in Brussels, and we're very fortunate. I'm very privileged now to be able to work with you in Warsaw. And Robert, I'll start with your comments. I think what I would summarize what you said before you got to the NATO-Russia part as saying, you know, this is actually a good news story. We have been working very hard. We're continuing to work very hard. These issues are difficult. There were lots of questions going into Lisbon about the strategic concept and what it would look like. There were lots of questions 3+ years ago about whether we would be able to develop contingency operations for the first time for this part of the world. There were questions about what the future of missile defense would look like. There were big questions about ISAF and Afghanistan. We haven't answered all of these questions perfectly, but we've worked very, very hard, and the results so far have been pretty good. And with respect to Libya, I think Minister Klich had it exactly right, as did Robert. We ought to be quite proud of what we've done. We've staked out new ground, and we stood up for our values, and we were able to back them up as well. And that's important. That's important not only because it's the right thing to do, but because if you want to create an institution and an alliance that lasts, it's got to be based on principles and values. I think we demonstrated that. And I think, obviously, anything could be faster. But if you look at the state of the art has been improving. So we were able to start contingency planning before there was an international vote. And that was, of course, essential to creating the framework for an ultimate decision. We were then able, I think within the space of 10 days from a Security Council, to get moving. And if you compare that, for example, to 1999, over the former Yugoslavia, well, that's a pretty good, that's a lot of improvement. Not that we can't do better, but that's a lot of improvement. If you go 5 years earlier to Rwanda, well, so I think we need to keep working at this, but I think as an alliance, as the minister said, we ought to be quite proud of what we are doing and what we're trying to do because the world needs it. Let me give a little bit of the view from Washington, D.C., reinforced by last weekend where I spent some time at the Munich Security Conference. This will only be the third time that Washington has hosted a NATO summit. It'll be the first time outside of Washington, D.C. It's going to be in my president's hometown. And that should tell you something, and it is intended to tell you something about the priority and importance that President Obama and my administration attach to NATO and its significance. We are obviously working on, as Bogusław pointed out, moving from Lisbon. And I won't go through what we accomplished in Lisbon, but I'll talk about what our broad aims are in Chicago. First, Afghanistan. We want to successfully complete the operation. It's our largest and most complex ever, but it's essential to our collective defense and cooperative security agenda. We want to work on our capabilities. We want to take lessons learned from Libya in the spirit of nothing being perfect. And we also deal with an austere fiscal climate. Not every country is in the enviable position of Poland, which is increasing its military budget. So we have to do more with less. And I'll say a little bit more about that as well. And we'll also be working on partnerships, and Jamie Shea talked about this outside of the NATO core. And the importance of this was really is shown in ISAF and as well in Libya in the response to the uprisings in North Africa and the Middle East. In Afghanistan, we need to manage the transition process while at the same time maintaining the principle of in together, out together. President Obama said the transition by 2014 ought to be complete. That's what we all decided together in Lisbon. And already, phase 2 of the transition is underway. 50% of the Afghan population is under the security control of the ANSF, Afghanistan National Security Forces. Secretary Panetta announced last week that 2013 will be a milestone on the way to 2014 as ISAF will shift from lead combat to a support, advise, and assist role as Afghan forces move further into the lead. We've talked a lot about missile defense. Missile defense will be a very important part of Chicago. Phase 1 of the NATO-ized missile defense program is becoming operational now, and already Spain has agreed to home port for Aegis class destroyers, which carry SM-3 missiles. In the Mediterranean, there's Aegis class destroyers operating, and Turkey has agreed to host a radar site. So we are making progress, we are staying on time, and I couldn't agree more with what Minister Klich said, that we want to be able to demonstrate that in Chicago. It's essential, and our goal is to declare interim capability in Chicago, handing command and control from the United States to NATO. And I had the privilege a couple of weeks ago to be hosted by General Welsh at Ramstein Air Force Base, and he showed me the C2BMC, which is the command and control facility which is being stood up and will be ready by Chicago. We'll also address gaps in ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and we've talked about smart defense as well. We also hope in Chicago to, and as Robert pointed out, we've already made an important statement about the indefinite extension of Baltic air policing, and we hope to memorialize that as well, to highlight that and formally announce it in Chicago. And last Friday, NATO agreed to fund the Alliance Ground Surveillance System. And this is a very important, tangible, long coming, but tangible expression of smart defense. And we're very pleased that that has moved forward. I thought I might just reinforce a couple of things that my Secretary of Defense said when he was in Munich about how the United States is looking at its own defense budget, and also how the United States is looking at it with respect to Europe, if the moderator tells me that I have sufficient time. Obviously, we're facing deep budget cuts in the United States, $487 billion over 10 years. That's a lot even for us. But we're planning fully to learn from experience, not to avoid past mistakes, and also to use it as an opportunity to make some changes that we need to make. We will ensure that the United States military remains the strongest in the world. Our military budget will, as has been said, still be larger than the military budgets of the next 10 countries combined, and it will be capable of defending our interests and the interests of our allies. We will not cut across the board. We will not hollow out our forces. The world is still a dangerous place, as everybody in this room knows, and I don't need to enumerate the threats, but we will be prepared to face them. But in doing so, our military will be smaller, we will be leaner, and frankly, as we begin to draw down, as we've already drawn down from Iraq, and as we continue to draw down in Afghanistan, this was going to happen in any case. But what we want to stress is a force that's agile, flexible, rapidly deployable, technologically advanced, cutting edge for the future. There's a lot of talk about enhancing our presence in Asia, Pacific, and the Middle East, and we will do this. We will maintain a robust presence in Europe, and elsewhere in the world by investing in existing alliances, by helping to make them stronger, by developing new partnerships and developing new, innovative, rotational deployments. And I'll try to squeeze in a couple of details about that. We will ensure that we can quickly confront and defeat aggression from any adversary, anytime, anywhere. We will have the capability to deal with more than one adversary at a time. And we believe we are shaping a force that will give us the capability to do this. And we will protect and prioritize our key investments in technology. Now let me say a little bit more about Europe. Secretary Clinton and Secretary Panetta appeared together at the Munich Security Conference, the first time a Secretary of State and a Secretary of Defense did so. And they did it to try to send a strong message to Europe about how the United States views transatlantic security and the transatlantic relationship as the core of our security strategy. After our strategic guidance is implemented, our military footprint in Europe will be larger than in any other region of the world. And we know we do this first because of security in Europe and our Article 5 obligations, but also because we understand, as we saw in Libya and as we see every day in Afghanistan, that we need to work together to address the challenges we face. In Europe, we will focus on the most pressing security challenges we face by investing in ballistic missile defense capability. And I've mentioned the different aspects of phase one of missile defense, which are already in place. We will also employ innovative approaches to strengthen security cooperation, even as we reduce the number of U.S. troops that are permanently stationed in Europe. We will maintain 2 brigades garrisoned in Europe, and as Jamie Shea told in some detail, we will also establish a brigade, a battalion-sized force to reinforce the NATO response force. The NATO response force was designed to be agile and rapidly deployable, but so far the United States had not made a tangible contribution to the NRF, and now we will identify a U.S.-based brigade from which we will provide U.S. land force contributions to the NATO response force, and we will rotate this battalion-sized task force to Germany for exercises and training. Poland figures very prominently in this repositioning in Europe because even as we focus on our 2 brigades in Europe, we see as an integral part of our smart defense strategy developing and building here. And one of the things I'll always be proudest of, Mr. Minister, is our signing together of the establishment of the first permanent American military presence in Poland, the aviation detachment. This is not something that's far off in the future. This is something that's happening this year, this fall. It starts modestly, but it has tremendous promise, and I think it's a good indication of the importance we put on Poland. And of course, Poland will figure prominently in missile defense with Phase 3, to which all of NATO is committed in 2018. My moderator is giving me a signal, so I'll try to end now, but just to say that. To bring it back to the, which is my job, to Polish-American relations a bit, just to say our cooperation is very strong, and I want to thank my Polish friends for serving as our protecting power in Syria. We asked Poland because it's a trusted ally, and we knew that they could exercise this responsibility for us, and we thank you for so readily accepting it. And as well, our developing security relationship in Poland through the aviation detachment and through missile defense is an indication of how NATO and the United States are readjusting and repositioning to be maximally effective as we head toward Chicago. Thank you.